Alright guys, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about Luche, Alex, Ysg, a bunch of topics. We'll talk about what I think is the best March in the game. I haven't used Luche Alex this whole KVK. Talk about some thoughts on the next infantry and archer release. What to do with Alex and Ysg. I think they actually both have kind of come back from the dead. Alex a little more so than Ysg, but both is worth investing again, which is kind of weird. And then just theory crafting, if I went back to the early game in June of 2024 as a mid-spender, how I would actually shoot for and compare pairings, KVK 1, 2, 3, and 4, kind of the investment order, how I would actually go about it. Okay, so this is one of probably the most popular topics to talk about, right? Everyone wants to know what the best March in the game is. And I think anyone who has used a max LC with a combination of Gorgo, Alex, or Scipio, that March is just different. When you look at the reports, it just seems to almost do twice as much damage as the next report. And that is just like a feel, or like what we call the eye test. But this KVK that we're finishing up now, I actually got to use the report manager by Cubus Mics, which I have integrated into a couple of my videos. We can actually pull the data to prove it. Okay, so this in this KVK, I used LC Alex as my primary infantry march. ZL Herman is largely agreed upon as the best archer march, and then Nevsky Joan is agreed upon as the best cavalry march. Some people will make a case for Huo Joan, but they're pretty similar, right? If you just look at how it trades, right, this is the average over thousands of reports. The KP trade for LC and Alex was 3.43 to 1, whereas like ZL Herman was 2.06 to 1, and then Nevsky Joan was 1.96 to 1. Obviously, it's me playing all this, so I'm not like treating LC Alex different. Me playing the same way. The LC Alex is trading at least 50%, sometimes a little bit more than the next best march, right? It's just crazy. If you look at the sev wounds, right, the sev wounds I'm taking per report on average is pretty close. If you look at the sev wounds I'm dealing, LC Alex is 7,214. Whereas the ZL Herman is only 4,775, and then the Nevsky Joan is even worse. Just some thoughts on the Nevsky Joan. I think the lack of AoE from the primary commander is starting to show a little bit, but Alex doesn't have AoE either, and I think the LC is carrying a lot of it, right? Luche is clearly the best commander of the game, because you could pair him with a couple of different commanders and it all does really well. Now, there's a debate, which one's actually the best? Now personally, I've used Scipio LC, my last KVK, all last KVK, and I use LC Alex, all this KVK. Surprisingly, if you gave me the option, I would actually choose the Luche Alex pairing over the Luche Scipio pairing. As far as the reports, just looking at them, they are pretty similar, but Alex has 10% more, or 5% more march speed, right? If you're off territory, if you're on Alliance territory, Alex actually has 15% more march speed than Scipio. Also, if you look at their debuff, Alex's expertise, the debuff, is very, very good. 3 targets take 30% more all damage for 4 seconds. That's one of the best debuffs in the game. Whereas like Scipio has a health debuff, he does some shielding, he like can reduce skill damage, it's good. But if you're just talking about pure like utility benefiting everyone else, Alex is by far the best. Now, based on their kit, and I haven't used Gorgo with LC, so I'm only talking about based on the kit and talking to other people that have used it. Gorgo Luche will probably trade the best, but the challenge there is it's very, very slow. And also, Gorgo only offers some utility to the group when she's below 50%, and usually when your march is below 50%, most of its effectiveness is gone. But as I was making this video, I had a thought. Purist, looking at his kit, also pairs really, really well with Luche, but he gets no love. And I think part of the reason is because the content creators that people follow, for the most part, are already in the end game or have been in the end game for a long time. And they already have Alex and Scipio, right? Some have Gorgo. And it didn't make a lot of sense to actually go back and invest in Purist. So the only testing that I've actually seen from content creators is through the battle simulator, right? And if you put Luche Alex in a battle simulator, it's not going to do so well. But when you're using that thing in the open field, it does massively well. So there actually could be a world where Purist LC is on par with the other 3, but we don't really have actual real open field testing to prove that or disprove that. And I'm certainly not going to go invest in Pyrrhus to find out, right? But there's actually an opportunity there, okay? Especially with his double relic. But if you gave me the choice right now, this is my personal opinion, I think Luche Alex is the best March in the game right now. It definitely is better than any Archer or Cav March. And really the debate is Scipio LC better or is Gorgo LC better? Now, thoughts on the next Infantry and Archer release? I think we are squarely in the middle of the era of the Infantry. Okay, since Luche came out, I think Infantry has become the best troop type, and which is fine because they've been down for so long, right, since I started playing the game. And I think Infantry is here to stay as the best troop type for at least the next year. Just because even if the next Infantry commander is a flop, just because of how good Luche is, he'll actually carry Infantry for at least until when Archer comes out. If the next Infantry commander is even halfway decent, then even if a new Archer commander comes out, I don't think it will be able to overtake Infantry. And then Cavs, we just had Belisarius release, so it'll be a while before we even see the new Cav commander, right? Now, if you were looking to, especially with a new Infantry cycle coming out, what's the best two for Infantry? When the new Infantry comes out, I think you're going to get Luche with a new commander. There's no argument there, right? Just assuming that, you know, power creep, new generation of commanders, Luche will pair well with a new commander. But what gets interesting is when you get to the best four, right? I think it's pretty slam dunk that the Luche and the new commander will be there. Scipio will have to be part of that best four just because he's so versatile and he's, as a commander, he's better than Alex, Kuang, and Sargon, right? Now, where it gets really interesting is I think Kuang is actually on the chopping block, right? Or Sargon, but because Luche pairs so well with Alex, whereas Kuang only pairs well with Scipio, Sargon does well in duels, but he's just kind of mid when it comes to open field performance. It's very likely that the next best two infantry commander is going to be Luche and Alex, which is a whole different level than any other March right now. And then you can actually run the new infantry commander with Scipio, and if the new infantry commander is even halfway decent, then you literally can have two infantry marches that are better than any other marches out there, right? Which is crazy to me. So right now, if you have three marches, you're looking for a fourth march. Traditionally, people have gone to Cav as a first troop type where they have two marches. I think it's clearly infantry right now. And I think Alex is squarely in the mix, right? He just had a double museum. I made a video about it a while ago saying there's a debate between Kuang and Alex, but actually having used Luche Alex's whole KVK and just seen how good that march is, I think Kuang is gone, right? Like, even if you give him a museum, because he can only pair with Scipio right now, like, they have to give him a crazy museum for it to even be a doubt as far as him being on the chopping block. But I don't think that's going to happen. Now, the Archer cycle, which is even further away, is really interesting. And also, we can uncover something that we're not aware of right now. But as it stands right now, I think with the next Archer cycle, you're going to be looking to pair the new Archer commander with either Herman or ZL. If the new commander has March speed, it'll probably be ZL. If the new commander doesn't have March speed and you're just going to run one Archer March, it'll actually probably be Herman, because March speed makes that much of a difference. Herman has 15%, ZL has none. Right now, when you get to the best four, this is also where it gets interesting. New commander, Herman, and ZL are obviously going to be in the top three. And then for the fourth spot, I think you're actually debating between Ashurbanipal and YSG. Now, you can imagine if the new commander has March speed and has a circular 5-target AoE, right? I can actually make a strong case that YSG would pair better than Ashurbanipal. Ashurbanipal obviously has a way higher damage factor, but he only brings 20% skill damage increase, whereas YSG brings a 50% skill damage increase. That just, there's no other commander in this game right now that can actually match that, right? Like with Nevsky, the secondary commander could get a 60% boost, but not the primary commander. Also, he's single target. When you have YSG, you have a rage engine, you have some defense with the museum, and then you have the monster skill damage increase. He actually has become a lot more relevant just because also in this KVK, I used, for my Archer marches, I used ZL Herman, I used ZL Boudica, which surprisingly did really well, and I used Herman YSG, which surprisingly did really well as well. Now, out of the three, the ZL Boudica traded the best, but all three marches were really close. Right, obviously the ZL Herman probably offers the most utility, but for the Herman YSG march to trade so well, like he's more than viable as a secondary to Herman. And also, because I was an artifact KVK, I actually also used Joan YSG, converting YSG to a Cav commander, which was by far the best Cav march I used. And then I actually also ran Scipio YSG, converting YSG to an infantry commander, and that march also did really well. Not as well as the Luche march, but better than any other march that's not the Luche march. Right, so because of how versatile he is as a secondary, because he actually pairs really well as a secondary to Herman, before, if you asked me 3 months ago, I would have said YSG probably don't invest. Now, for a commander that you could get in KVK 1, that'll do really well for you, KVK 2, and even in KVK 3, he's a natural pairing for Herman as your first Archer March. I think YSG for spenders is actually worth investing in. I think clearly on the chopping block is going to be Boudica. Her kit's really good, but where she's lacking is she's lacking AoE, and she lacks a skill damage increase. Both of those are very important. And also her march speed is a little bit low at 10%. I think when you're going to get rid of a Archer March, right, when Boudica is the first to go, and really what you're debating when it comes to the fourth Archer March is going to be either Ashurbanipal or YSG. Now, what to do with Alex and YSG, which unironically is also what I think is the best march in KVK2. I think for Alex, for most people, he's a must invest. Okay, if you plan on running more than 3 marches at some point, or if you plan on running a second infantry march, you have to invest in Alex because he'll pair well with Luche, and you could get him early, and then Scipio will pair with a new commander, right? And both those will probably be better than any other, the march of any other troop type, at least for a few months. The challenge with Alex is before we discovered him as a pairing for Luche, he was kind of dead in the water, right? He was kind of mid pairing behind Kuang. He didn't do that well with Scipio. He didn't do that well with Sargon. But because Scipio is so versatile and Scipio can pair with a new commander, Alex is almost like squarely back in the mix, right? Because what's easier to get? Alex, who you could get in the dailies and in KVK2, or Gorgo? Obviously you would choose Alex. And because of how well Luche Alex performs, I think for most players, especially if you're any kind of a spender, Alex is actually almost a must invest at this point. Now YSG, right, I talked about how he pairs really well as a secondary to Herman. Maybe he pairs well with Ashurbanipal. I don't have Ashurbanipal, so I don't have personal experience to talk about that, but I could actually see how that pairing will work really well as well. Also, he's very, very relevant with so many artifact KVKs now. The Joan YSG, the Scipio YSG, I'm sure Nevsky YSG would do really, really well as well, which I didn't run. I ran a Joan YSG, but he, not only because you could get him so early, you could use him for barb chaining, you could use him in artifacts, and then he actually is a really good secondary to Herman. I think for a lot of people, it's actually worth considering investing in him again, especially for a spender, just because you can get him so early, and he's relevant even right now, and I see him relevant even through the next Archer cycle. Even if Ashurbanipal pairs better as part of the top 4, I don't think YSG is that far behind. His skill damage increase plus his rage engine makes him worth investing in. Okay, so I actually, if it was me going back to the early game, I would actually invest in both of them. So I consider myself a mid spender. And in June of 2024, I have no plans of going back to the early game. But if I did, in KVK 1, right, I would actually max Mina. It's very, very good value. You could use them through KVK 3 and do fine. I would actually do Mina YSG and then, just 2 epic infantry commanders just so I could get an infantry set there. But the best one would probably be Bjorn Sun Tzu. You want Bjorn primary because he increases the skill damage taken, and then Sun Tzu does the 5 target AoE, right? In KVK 2, now that I can get Alex, I would actually probably still do Mina YSG and then Alex Sun Tzu. If you want to run 1 march, it's going to be Alex YSG. Right? But if you already are running 2 marches from KVK 1, where if I was already running 2 marches, I would still run 2 marches. In KVK 3, this is where it gets a little tricky because you have access to endgame commanders. The Cav wheel comes out first, right? So when the Cav wheel first comes out, I would actually try to get Joan to 5115 and run that with YSG. It's going to be a little bit squishier, right? Because you don't get the museum defense from YSG, but the march is fast enough and it pumps out so much damage that I think that march would be worth using. If my experience with Joan YSG was any indication of that in this KVK. you should already have Alex max. So if the new infantry commander isn't out yet, then it's Luche Alex, and again, probably the best march in the game, or one of the best marches in the game. Or you can actually invest Luche and the new commander, right? And then you can run Alex YSG, or in the Mina with Jones, something like that. Usually, as far as I know, the archer wheel, so it's the cav wheel, then the infantry wheel, and then the archer wheel comes out last in KVK 3. So by the time you can actually get to the end game archer commanders, your KVK 3 is almost over, right? But if you were going to invest in a first march, if you have YSG, I would actually pair Herman with YSG. And that march does a lot of damage. DPS wise, that march actually does more damage than ZL Herman. So it's more than good enough to use when you first start out. And then as you're going into the off season for KVK 4 and then to KVK 4, personally, I would shoot for Joan YSG, Luche Alex, Scipio, and the new commander. Scipio you could actually get in the dailies now, and then ZL Herman, right? And those will be really, really solid. And that's how I would actually go for the top 4 marches. There's a little bit like wiggle room here, but I think Nevsky is just not quite cutting it these days, which I'm surprised, because for the longest time he was considered the best commander in the game. But just because of like the synergy and the nature of where this game is going, especially with cav commanders, they almost need some kind of like AoE or skill damage increase to keep up with infantry and archers, and they're not going to get that for a while. So to kind of mitigate, I don't know if that's the right word, to kind of compensate for that, YSG with a cav commander actually might be the way to go. At least it's a good bridge option, right? So this is just how I would run KBK 1, 2, 3, 4 at my spend level and my activity level. I'm sure people will have lots of thoughts about this. Now, I'm, to be honest, like almost a year removed from KBK 4 now, so maybe some stuff has changed, but this is how I would run it. Now, if you watch all the way in, you haven't yet, please like the video. It really would help me out. That engagement actually boosts the algorithm, right? It gets more eyeballs on this video. If you do enjoy my content, please subscribe if you haven't yet. And again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.